Welcome back to ATM Blowout, everyone. And then we have, before we get on to all the issues we have for you today, we have Professor Leki Agima, who is seated right here. He's a professor of law and compliance expert. Good to have you here today.
Good morning. Nice to be with you as always, Vivian.
All right, let's get on with the issues and the news, everyone. The selection of a Minister of State for Petroleum Resources from the oil-rich Niger Delta region has drawn criticism from the Inter-Party Advisory Council. Yabagi Sani, the national chairman of IPAC, referred to the appointment as sending the wrong signal on Thursday. According to Sani, confining the appointment to a specific state will encourage a sense of entitlement among Niger Delta citizens. Unfortunately, this sector, the Niger Delta, has been made to look as if people that should be appointed to that ministry should come from Niger Delta. It is a wrong signal because when you now give people a sense of entitlement, their efficiency becomes something that is not given due attention to. I think we must change that scenario. But if he must do that, not because I am from the North Central, why don't you give Federal Capital Territory to an indigene of North Central? If you must be sensational about such a very important ministry, what do we do about fighting crude oil theft? He asks. Crude oil theft is said is endemically is perpetrated from what we heard so far from the people from that area. Sani suggested that the petroleum sector should be looked into from a professional point of view and a national interest point of view. All right, let me start from the bottom where he said that crude oil theft is being perpetrated by people from that area.
I find that sort of comment very strange, you know, because Mujahideen Asari Dokubo had, even in the presidential villa, accused the Nigerian military of being involved. Whether that is true or false, I think effort should have been made to ask him to provide the evidence. But I am aware that there are small thieves in the oil industry and there are big thieves. Now, if there are big thieves, it means that those big thieves need to have certain facilities or empowerment that make them able, you know, if you like, to do what they do in a big way. Now, you cannot then say that the thieves come from just the region. I believe that almost every region in Nigeria has been involved in crude oil theft because of both confirmed and unconfirmed information we get that, look, there are big players, people who engage in big time bunkering, and there are those who engage in just, if you like, call it pipeline vandalization, which is like a plating compared to big time bunkering. So I think his statement is completely wrong. It smacks of ethnic bias, and it's also just an attempt to stigmatize just the Niger Delta. Having said so, I want to state clearly here that I'm one of those who condemn clearly any form of public vandalization of public utilities or public infrastructure or public sources of wealth, such as the crude oil facilities and other oil sector related activities. So I will not be part of it. Neither will I be in any mood to condone it, even from people from my own region. But it is false. If we do a thorough investigation, it is very likely we will find out that the big time players will usually be those who have had the biggest political advantage in Nigeria, and those people are certainly not people from the Niger Delta. That's the much I can say.
As a matter of fact, Asari happened not to be the only person that have publicly pointed out that the people who perpetrate the former governor of Rivers State, His Excellency Yeson Wike, on more than one occasion pointed out that it is the Nigerian military who are doing this. We have also seen supposedly connivance with burning of vessels and all of that to cover up all of this. So we don't know why IPAC would be pointing their fingers at the Niger Delta, like you said, not to cover up, but let's also try to state facts. However, the conversation is still around why Niger Delta, so people from Bayelsa states or Niger Delta shouldn't just be those that would be used for let me quickly address that. You know, sometimes when people make statements, because basically generally in Nigeria people fail to keep record, there's no database as such, but I want to assure him that at critical times, including when the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries was formed, most of the ministers of petroleum have always come from the north. I'll give you an example: Adamu Chiroma and several others. So I think if it's a recent trend where people from the Niger Delta are now being appointed, that shouldn't raise any eyebrow. How many? Silver
Yeah, but my point I'm making, Vivian, is that this recent appointment don't equate to the long periods that the Northerners dominated that industry. So if you from the North, you are dominating an industry or concerning resources from another area, and there was no hue and cry. Why are you crying now? Because people from that area are appointed. And let me make a specific pronouncement on the present appointment of my very good friend Lokobri Heneke. We were classmates. He's an intelligent fellow. He's a PhD holder. He's a lawyer. He's astute. If he has any other issues, that should be sorted out by the Nigerian state. But on a personal knowledge of him, he is more than qualified. In fact, far more qualified than many of the Northerners who even occupied the position in the past. And that is my own way of saying, it doesn't matter for me. It doesn't matter who occupies any position. If you want to appoint a Northerner, let him do the job. If you want to appoint somebody from the Southeast, let him do the job. If you like, bring even a foreigner on a contract, let him do the job. So we shouldn't be here emphasizing things that are not important. That is my position. Okay, so for you, irrespective of where the person comes from, it doesn't matter. In fact, I don't care where the president comes from. If you like, bring him from another clan, provided he will make Nigeria work. All for it. So why do you think this conversation has been a major one or consistent in the Nigerian news about who, where the person came from? I remember the present House of the Speaker, yes, Benjamin Kanu, yes, saying that Southeast should be given more slots. Pleading with I don't agree with all that. Okay. I don't. I only agree with the constitutional provision of equity in terms of appointment. Okay. I do not agree that those appointments must be ethnically colored, meaning that while I believe that every part of Nigeria should have a shot at the presidency, have a shot at all positions in the country, while I also believe that all of them should be given their fair opportunity to participate in government, e.g., there are 36 states, it means that you should try as much as possible to have at least 36 ministers. I don't believe it is the duty of any politician to insist that, look, we want this particular position or give us more because we are disadvantaged. It has to be by the constitutional provisions, and the constitutional provisions are enough. Yeah, but Prof, there are states where there are ministers, like we have 36 states, include the FCT, that 37, and then we have about 45 or 46 ministerial positions and portfolios right now. But so there are states that would definitely have more than one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know why it doesn't matter? Because the minimal constitutional provision is that you should have at least one per state. There will be a problem is where you give states to, and there's a state left out without a minister. Okay. In fact, it also doesn't matter, as far as I'm concerned, whether it's a minister of state or a senior minister. The truth is that a minister is a minister. All right. All right, we'll take it from there. Yeah. But I wouldn't want to leave this conversation without pointing out that what do we do, or asking rather, what do we do when the conversation is always tailored to we are being marginalized, our tribe is not being carried along? Well, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that now before you go on, Prof, look at it from the fact that a lot have also been done to tear us apart. So we do no longer look at Nigeria as one, but we look at it as units from our ethnic regions and what have you. So when these cries or the hues come forth as to say, oh, they got more, we didn't get less, and how much this is contributing to dividing Nigeria. And if you also consider the issue of a federal character in appointments and or the sharing of whatever it is that needs to be done. Well, I think it's unfortunate that Nigerians have not learned their lessons. They have been playing this tribal card since as far as the 1920 Nigerian Council, Legislative Council, when the first political grouping of all Nigerians was made into a common assembly. It didn't work. They played it in 1946 under the Richards Constitution. It didn't work. In 1951 under the McPherson Constitution. It didn't work. They played it even as far as the Littleton Constitution just before independence, up to at least the 1958. It didn't work. Don't forget there was a hue and cry of the minorities in the Niger Delta, which was the minority clearing corps after the London Constitutional Conferences of 1957 and 1958. Still on the issues of tribalism. Tribalism will not take Nigeria to anywhere. Nigeria should be emphasizing competence instead of tribe. As I've said, there is already constitutional safeguards that ensure that, look, when we need to put people in position, there must be a fair representation. We should rather insist that that is adhered to. But if there is need for additional positions that are not covered by that constitutional provision that requires competence, please, competence should take precedence. In fact, let me give you information, Vivian. Are you aware that this country has once been ruled by a Fulani president and a Fulani vice? Are you aware?
I can't remember.
You can't?
When was that?
Okay, so I'll educate you.
Please do. Please do.
When Major General Muhammadu Buhari became the military head of state of this country on the 31st of December 1983, his vice, Tunde Diagbo, contrary to the widely held belief of many people that he was a Yoruba man, was not a Yoruba man. He is a full-blown Fulani man who is from Ilorin, Kwara State. In case people don't also know in this country, the Fulanis in Kwara State have formed the practice of even bearing Yoruba surnames, ostensibly because of a seeming integration between the Yoruba Aborigines, who originally were the owners of Ilorin and Kwara, and the Fulani people who through a jihad 200 plus years ago, you know, if you like call it, took over the reins of hegemony in Ilorin and the Kwara surroundings. So that is the position. We've had that sort of situation.
Oh,
and both of them were from the northern part of this country, and hell did not break loose. Then you are making noise over a small situation here. I mean, a minor event. That's nonsense.
I had no idea.
Well, it's the fact.
I mean, and that was in 1983.
Yes, 83.
So, I mean, okay, I had no idea. Thank you for that information.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about something that seemed to be a bit of a federal character, or maybe not. The federal government has approved a 5 billion naira grant to be given to each of the 36 states of the federation for the procurement of grains, as well as 5 trucks of rice to each state as palliative to cushion the effect of the removal of fuel subsidy, according to the National Economic Council on Thursday. The distribution of 40,000 sacks of corn to the states was also approved by the NEC. In light of the current political unrest in the nation, it also is instructed NEMA the National Emergency Management Agency, to deliver food to states that border Niger Republic. These were some of the outcomes of the NEC meeting presided over by the Vice President Kashim Shettima at the Council Chamber, Presidential Villa Abuja. On his side, the Governor of Anambra State, Prof. Charles Soludo, said that the review of social register was in progress. He said Nigeria was already having refugees from Niger Republic, which he said is affecting the distribution of palliatives. However, the governor of Kaduna State, Senator Uba Sani, said only 2 billion naira has so far been given to states instead of the 5 billion approved. Actually, it was 180 billion naira that was approved. Now, you have 5,000 to each of the 5 billion to each of the 36 states.
Yes.
According to Governor Sani, he has only gotten 2 billion and not 5 billion.
Okay.
All right. Let's have you give a holistic view of this before I come in with my
let me also tell you a part of the story you didn't highlight.
Okay.
The governor of Anambra State, who has been behaving strangely in recent time over this palliative issue, equally said that there have been, according to news reports, reliable news report, that there have been a movement of refugees since the takeover of the military in Niger.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
Which has created a problem in the distribution of palliative.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
He did not, however, tell us how it created a problem. It looks like some of these governors, particularly Charles Soludo, do not want to share palliative. I'm worried by the fact that the federal government gives these governments an open check. For some governments or governors, there might be no fear. For others, we cannot say. I just pray that while you are giving them all these resources, you are asking them what is their own state counterpart measure to cushion the palliatives. Is it that the federal government is spoon-feeding people who get monthly allocations? Is that the duty of the federal government? And even if the federal government will intervene, being the father of all, does that mean the state government should relax and only receive? What is even the criteria for distribution? These things must be looked into. Otherwise, this process will fail. And when it fails, it will look as if nothing was given out to the states. Otherwise, I would say from the news you have just read and from the amount of items being dished out, it will go a long way to cushion the effect, provided it does not fall into the wrong hands, provided it is not looted, provided it is not hoarded, provided it is not concealed, restricted, and made unavailable, as we saw during the period of COVID.
Now, let's look at figures. Let's not, without banding these figures, let's bring Lagos and the Kano states.
Yes.
Numerically speaking,
yes,
these are the highest number of states.
Yes.
It's both. This has nothing to do with natives.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about if those NPC figures of according to some figures. No, there is supposed to be a census. Until that census verifies those figures.
Okay.
Well, as is widely believed. Okay. Let's say it's widely believed. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Presently, according to NPC national population figures, we have Lagos and Kano with the highest number of.
Sorry, Vivian. I still have to come in. Do the NPC have any legal basis to ban it? No, sorry. Let me explain how it works. In a census year. And this is a census here, irrespective of the fact that census has not become. I do not think that they have a legal basis to bandy out any figure concerning states.
All right.
They don't.
Yeah, okay. Now, I'm just looking at it from...
Let's just say it is widely believed that these are the two most populated states.
Well, I wouldn't say widely believed because these are, according to NPC, National Nigerian Population Council, is
believed by some, if you like.
Yeah, is a body authorized by the Nigerian government to check or to collect data for residents.
When last did you do a census? When last did you do a census? They are not infallible, so we need to challenge them.
I don't have the power to sit down here to challenge them.
No, we should be suspicious of what they say.
Okay, by nature of these two states, for instance,
yes,
they hold the number of residents more than any other state. Then you go to the KKK states, then you come down to the south.
What do you mean by KKK states?
Katsina, Kaduna, and Kano.
Yes.
Basically those states around there. So if you look at all of these, you have Nasarawa and all of those people, their figure are usually seen in the SMPC board to be higher. So now when you say 5 trucks of grain,
yes,
and 5 billion naira given to these states, Kaduna is already saying we only got 2 billion, and we didn't get 5 billion.
Yes.
What exactly do you think this government is trying to do? How exactly is this supposed to manage the challenge of the subsidy removal? Because people are not asking you to actually give them grains and money. They are asking you to manage this challenge so that it will be easy for us. And then this grain and this thing, I remember it was 8,000 naira to 13 million families, 12 million families, and now here we are being given 5 billion and 5 trucks. And
that was dealing with extreme poverty. That's a different issue.
Which of them is in with extreme poverty?
The 8,000 for 12 million.
What's this one?
This is a palliative for the general population.
No, the government said that that was giving for that 12.
We don't know if it's been given. Do you have any information?
No, we're not aware. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that it's been given. I say initially they came out to say that is what they are going to give.
No, that's not what they said. I follow the news very carefully, and I'm aware that when the president removed the subsidy, there was the pangs and pains of arguably, because even the criteria of arriving at 12 million is neither here nor there. We don't know if it is accurate or not. I don't think it is. Now, they said the poorest households in Nigeria should get that money to immediately caution them. And then the public debate came up to say, what we ate
for what?
Cushion the immediate pain, the effect, the lack.
Of the subsidy removal?
Yes, for the poorest households, not for the general populace.
That's what I'm trying to say.
So this is now for the general populace.
Okay, now, the first plan the Buhari government had was 8,000 to 12 million households. This is the second one that
not Buhari, Tinubu,
yes. The Tinubu government have is 8,000 to 12 million households.
Yes.
Now we're having that. When the cry came out, they pulled that back. And
no, I don't think it will be wrong, Vivian, for you to say they have pulled it back.
So what have they done with that?
No, you can't. Until government tells you they have changed the policy. I believe that policy is on. They said.
How is it on?
You know why I believe it is on? Because government has not said they have withdrawn that policy.
So
this
what have
is
they done
now
with
for the
it?
general, we don't know.
Okay,
But,
for
but
now, for now.
see, there's a problem even with that policy. So many people suffer from financial exclusion in the sense that they don't have bank account. They want to use the bank accounts of those people to credit them directly.
Prof,
and that will be an activity between them and the central bank.
Prof, let's not make this argumentative. Let's go for the first part.
Yes.
When the first thing that the Tinubu government promised Nigerians to help when the issue of the subsidy removal came up was the 8,000 to 12 million families.
For the poorest family, I'm correcting that impression, Vivian. It wasn't meant for the general population.
Prof,
yes.
The first thing the Tinubu government came up with was 8,000 to 12 million families.
Yes.
Now, and that was meant to cushion the effect of subsidy removal.
For those families, because 12 million is not the reflection of the whole population.
Of course. The NBS said there's about 133 million multidimensional poor people in Nigeria. But that's on one side. The second part of this, in the name of subsidy removal or palliative, we're having right now, is the fact that they are giving 5 billion to each state.
Yeah.
Then there are 5 trucks of grain. Yeah. There's been no further conversation on the first. No. Where it is and where it's going to, we don't know.
Yes.
That this second part that they have given out right now, what exactly is this going to do? If you go back to where I started off from, if you consider that the number of people resident in each state is not the same with number of people. Those in Lagos, you can't be comparing the number of Lagos State with Abia State.
Yes.
So when you're giving 5 billion to Lagos State or Kano State, and you're giving 5 billion to Anambra State and 5 billion to Abia State, for instance, how do you begin to imagine how this can cushion the effects of subsidy?
Well, that is just a mathematical nuance. And it's a minor problem, because the major problem is that the palliatives should get to the people. You see, Vivian, sometimes when we comment on this issue, we shouldn't use ourselves as an example. I might not, I don't know if I need it. I might not need to access those grains and water. But just imagine, Vivian, if our markets are flooded with cheap bags of rice, beans, gari, staple foods that Nigerians eat. We know our staple foods. For the next 6 months, Nigerians will be not only happy, but they would be living a much healthier life. That will take some of the, if you like call it, to borrow your language, emotional and mental stress away from daily facing the reality that the fuel hike has come to stay. And please, let me also warn, because sometimes we overemphasize these things. You don't have to drive a car. If you own a car or any other automobile device and you cannot cope with fuel in it, I advise you park and use public transport. This is an era for public transporters to shine, because they can fuel, they run commercially. If you fuel your car, you are not getting any means of recouping that sum. So you don't have to drive. So I think Nigerians should limit the amount of complaint they complain about fueling their car. Because even myself, I don't have to drive to come to this studio. If I find it difficult, I will enter a public vehicle. In fact, if it's an Okada, I will join. If it's a Keke, I will join. It won't remove anything from me. And Nigerians must learn to understand that in even the civilized countries, public transportation or the use of transportations in public is the norm. It is the norm. And we should imbibe it. Not every day you fuel your car, you are going to aimless places that you are not even making any profit from. That's my advice.
Okay, so now looking at it that, like you said, these are nuances when it comes to numbers and all of that. But how much do you think, whether you use a public transport or not?
Yes.
You have said that if this is put into, buying subsidized products, put into the Nigerian
basically
market,
that's what the federal government is doing now.
Yeah, it's going to go a long way to cushion the effect.
A very big way for that matter.
People can now easily buy the rice or beans or any of the grains that they can afford. Now, how long do you think?
In fact, I suspect that two things happen. We don't know the strategy they want to use.
Okay.
Is it buying and distributing? Or is the state buying to sell at a very cheap rate? I have a suspicion, I may be wrong, that the federal government may have given that money for them to buy and distribute. Now, if you say buy and distribute or even buy and sell, I hope it will not be bungled by the state government. Because this process ought to have been driven by the state governments, and even I dare say the local governments.
So if you are to advise the government or the state governors on what to do with this, because you also talked about they should, Soludo is complaining, Soludo is saying that they need to go back to the register.
Oh, Soludo has been complaining needlessly for a long time.
And we don't even know what he has done
it
for
is
his
suspected
state.
that he doesn't want to pay this money.
Okay, now another thing is this. Thank God he said it's suspicion. Obasani of Kaduna State is saying that he has only gotten 2 billion. Now the concern
must he get all the money immediately? What has he done with the 2 billion?
Okay, we have no idea. So you are the compliance experts here. So if you're to advise the government or the governors who receive this money what to do with it, how best would you, what best would you
I will advise the federal government to activate all the cells of NEMA, the National Emergency Agency in this country, to supervise, work with the states to ensure that the distribution gets to people in the 776 local governments of this country, so that it does not end up in warehouses at state capitals, and why people will be starving for the next 6 months.
Okay, so you don't agree for it to be the grain should be bought with the money distributed in the market, and now so that it can be cheaper for everyone to buy. Since
I think in any case, Vivian, even if you distribute it, those who are traders will even resell it. We all know that. But now there is a very good chance that, because if you buy and you distribute to the general population, and even with the high amount of traders, even when they buy, haven't bought it from a very cheaper source, they are going to sell it cheaper. So I think whichever way, it's a win-win. But please note, Vivian, I'm still complaining that the federal government should not spoon-feed state governments. State governments should lead the role. They should do more. They should use part of their allocation to make sure that this is a sustainable activity. In fact, there is nothing stopping state governments from having their own emergency intervention agencies for food security, because what we are discussing is food security.
Yeah, that's correct.
So this is it.
Okay, so now when it comes to the initial one of the 8,000 to the 12 million indigent families was supposed to be for 6 months.
Yes.
You have idea how long this will be, or if you're to advise again, how do you think they should stretch this? I mean, we don't know when our refineries are going to start working.
That policy or proposal by the government, good intention as it may be, I think it was not a very smart one by the federal government, because of a simple reason that you and I know that there is hardly any value to 8,000 in 30 days for any family.
Yeah.
I think that if the government does not want to increase that amount or does not have enough, but they have even spent seemingly more in this second tranche of activity, they could have increased the amount and paid the families at a go or in 2 installments so that they can buy things. And in fact, it is even possible that the families will be able to use the second, 2 close installments. So I'm not saying pay one after 6 months. Pay one within a month, and then in a 1 month period you pay the other one, so that if they buy their foodstuff, they can decide on what to use the remaining part of the money to. So I advocate an increase, and I advocate a close payment so that the money will count. Because if you keep staggering 8,000 for 6 months, that gives us about 48,000 naira. It will go to no issue.
Okay. We'll just keep our fingers crossed and promise to bring you all the news details as it unfolds, as it breaks. Now, Godwin Emefiele, the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, had charges of illegal possession of a firearm and ammunition dismissed against him on Thursday by a federal high court in Lagos. In the meantime, Emefiele's scheduled arraignment on a brand new 20-count charge was postponed on Thursday at the Federal Capital Territory High Court located in Maitama. This was caused by one of the defendants in the case not being present. Justice Mwazo decided to postpone the case until August 23rd. At the Federal High Court in Lagos, Justice Nicholas Oweibo struck out the charges against Emefiele for lack of diligent prosecution. This followed an application by the federal government to withdraw the charges. The oral application was made on Tuesday by Mr. Mohammed Abubakar. Abubakar is the Director of Public Prosecutions in the Federal Ministry of Justice. Abubakar had said that the application was informed by emerging facts that needed further investigation. Sometimes the ridiculousness that we have to witness in the Nigerian states, sometimes it gets you to wonder. You told us this man was financing terrorism. You told us this man had all kinds of allegations was poured on Emefiele.
Yeah.
And then you picked him up, even though there was a court order saying you shouldn't do that. That was ordered made in December. Now you picked him up. There's been a lot of upheaval in the process of getting here. And now you are taking off the firearm and ammunition accusation charge against him. And now you're putting up 20 count charge. That in those 20 count charge, we're looking what are those things you accuse him of? We can't seem to really relate it with any. Legally speaking, what do you think is going on here?
Well, first, let me correct an impression. There can be, with all due respect to his lordship, there can be lack of diligent prosecution when the prosecution withdraws a charge. The matter has just been discontinued, whether temporary or in perpetuity, that is permanently, it's left for the prosecution. Actually, it's the prerogative of the state to decide who they prosecute, how they prosecute, when they prosecute, or whether or not they will prosecute. That is the law. So I find it strange that they talk about lack of diligent prosecution is coming. There's a withdrawal, so if there's a withdrawal, you struck it out of the list, and that's the position. So there's no room for us to now argue about lack of diligent prosecution when there was even no prosecution. Diligent prosecution will occur when prosecution has started, but they haven't been following up their case. So the lack of diligence could also air the court enough to strike off the matter. That is the position on that. Now, Emefiele, as for Emefiele, is not exactly a saint. We were all witnesses in this country what Emefiele did with the Naira exchange situation. In fact, it was so brutal on Nigerians that for most younger Nigerians who often talk about, oh, they want to fight, that should give them an idea of what a crisis situation is. And if they want to go to war, they should give them also a clear-cut idea that if there is war, you won't even see money to spend. You will starve. Nigerians starve for months on the BS of Emefiele. So I advocate that Emefiele should be made to pass through any legitimate but not malicious charges that they have against him. And he's a big man. He should be able to get very good lawyers and defend himself. But if you are expecting me to say that Emefiele is an innocent man, I don't have that information. I also don't know whether he should be treated with kid gloves. In fact, I advocate that he should not be treated with kid gloves because he didn't treat Nigerians with kid gloves.
But he was working under the order of the then president.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I've been in many public offices, and
you mean he could have told the president?
Yes, you can because you always have a choice. Please read 7 Habits of Effective People by Steve Covey. You always have a choice, Vivian. If somebody is giving you what is an illegal instruction, you can say, with all due respect, sir, I can't carry it. I've done it countless times. And then, in fact, in my own case, I'll petition you outrightly. And I'll meet you in the hallway and give you a copy of a petition. Because I don't fear any person.
But that's you.
Yes, but that's the way it should be. If you can't do that, if you can't do that, then you go contrary to the oath. You don't swear an oath to serve a sovereign. You swear an oath for the Nigerian state. The Nigerian state is the ground, not the sovereign, not the president. So if you like, you join the president to do something illegal. Well, we know the norm in Nigeria. Presidents are hardly ever investigated or prosecuted. Now you are suffering it. He should go to court and tell us who asked him to do those things and see whether those things will free him.
Okay.
That's my position.
Wish him the very best.
Well, I don't. I don't.
What about the best could you wish him?
I don't wish him any best. He should face his trial. If it's a fair one. But if they are bringing malicious charges against him, I'm not party to that.
So let's wish him the best of trials then.
Well, I don't know about that.
Of the DSS.
I don't know about that.
All right. The All Progressive Congress has warned the new Nigeria People's Party government in Kano State to desist from embarrassing the chairman of the National and State Assembly Election Petition Tribunal, Justice Flora Azinge, in the wake of the alleged 10 million bribery offered to her legal team. This was contained in a statement issued on Thursday by the spokesman for Gawuna Gari Campaign Council, Malam Mohammed Garba. This was even as the Kano state government called on security agencies to dig deep into the allegation and bring the strong forces who are well known for their corruption attitude to book. Justice Azinge if you recall, raised the alarm that some senior lawyers were attempting to bribe judges in her team. Azinge expressed concern that this was the second time a judge was complaining about how some lawyers prosecuting election matters before her tried to corrupt the system by offering bribes to her colleagues. She stated in the open court on Tuesday that money is flying, adding that it is being rumored that the staff collected 10 million naira. Okay, first and foremost, why is the judge telling us that that's a crime, isn't it?
Yeah,
committed under you, that someone took 10 million naira.
No, it was offered. That's
okay,
there has
an
been
offer
an
was
attempt,
made.
yeah, which is also still a crime anyway.
Good. Now, so what it means is that you know those involved.
I should think so.
Okay, good. So now the APC is saying that the NNPP should not manipulate their way and all of that.
Yeah.
How do we solve crime or criminality or the issue of corruption, attempt to corrupt the system, if we do not head on? Because we expected the judge to be offered, try to say, this is what had happened, this is what had happened, and if there's no evidence, just let it go. What do you think is going on here?
I don't even think it's an issue of media. You know, we have become a social media generation where even when you put something in the mainstream media, you are acting as if you're on social media. There's no basis for that under our jurisprudence. If somebody offered a bribe to a judge, it's a very simple matter. Get him arrested. And that's it. When he is being taken to court, his crime will be announced to the public to know. So I don't think that this is something that there should be raising of a hue and cry. We all know what is the right thing to do. Do the right thing. Whether you say you are a senior lawyer, you are this, you are that, and you offer a bribe to the judge, you should be arrested. When you are being prosecuted, questions will be asked, what did he do? And then it will be alleged, because of course there is evidence. So that is it. I don't think that it's something that there should be this hue and cry in the media over it. Yeah, arrest the people, because now you are alerting them, giving them enough opportunity to prepare their defenses to deny if later you want to arrest them. So it doesn't matter where they did it or how they did it. You should have arrested them first, and then when you take them to court, then their crime will be announced. That should be the proper step.
All right, we'll take a short break, everyone. When we come back, we'll be talking more about the Niger situation, and of course looking at how this impacts us as Nigerians. Stay with us. We'll come back to you after the break. All right, welcome back to ATM Blowout, everyone. Now let's talk Niger issues. Concerned group under the aegis of Diaspora Action for Democracy in Africa has called on President Bola Tinubu and Chairman of ECOWAS to resolve President Bola Tinubu and Chairman of ECOWAS to resolve the two diplomacy rather than military intervention in Niger. The spokesperson of the group, Mr. Great Imo Jonathan, made the call in Abuja while addressing newsmen on the planned military enforcement of ECOWAS in Niger. Jonathan said military deployment in Niger will also affect the internal security gains in Nigeria, which he said will involve deployment of more military men from the Boko Haram ISWAP war front, amongst others. Now, Prof.
Yes.
This concern over Niger and the threat by ECOWAS to go use military force and all of that. There's been several challenges in Niger as we speak.
Yeah.
Days ago, we learned about the death of 17 soldiers, Nigerian soldiers. And then from there, we also know that several over 9,000 schools have been shut down. And we also know that access to deliver goods, because they largely depend on Nigeria and other countries to survive. Now, we are looking at the military junta, but beyond the junta, there are humans, there are children, there are women. Some of them already trooping into Nigeria as refugees right now, which is some of the governors complain that is going to impact on what they are doing. So if we're looking at all of this as anything to go by, what are the issues that we need to begin to deal with as a people right now?
Okay, first, let me say that there has been two stories in the media. There is an ambush of Nigerian soldiers in Niger State. I hope it's not...
No, not that one. That one is a crash.
Yes, then there is also the story of some loss of soldiers in Niger Republic.
17 of them, yes.
Good. So, I just want us to distinguish, because people have been swapping those
the one
stories.
For Nigerian soldiers is about I think about some reports said 20 something.
Okay.
Some reports said
yes,
30.
it was in the 20s. It was in the 20s at
the
least.
defense headquarters pointed at, but the one in Niger, the death of 17 soldiers allegedly killed by the Islamists, and the reason why that was a challenge is that that's the reason we're told that the U.S. military, over 4,000 of them, are residents in Niger to protect them, so to say, from this. And now, all this while we couldn't hear any of such major attacks, or suddenly, in the midst of this crisis, that the U.S. is against the military takeover, 16 of their soldiers are already there. So looking at all of this crisis, this group is basically saying, just like every other person, hitting these guys with the military force is not going to be a way out. But I'd like to bring you in here.
I also think that the heads of states of ECOWAS are acting based on ego presently. Okay. With all due respect to them. I think the first mistake they made was to issue out the threat to invade. You know, there is this pride in human beings. You have made a pronouncement. If you don't see it through, people will say, oh, you are not a person of your words. And probably that is what they want to see through. But they must be wary of the fact that they are being prodded probably by Western countries who already have military deployed in Niger, but have not deemed it fit to take such, if you like, call it provocative actions to intervene. The query now is, are we going in there to just confront Niger, a country of about 12 to 16 million, some we argue, or are we going in there for a prolonged international conflict, which both the West and the East, by the East I'm referring to Russia and its allies, will come in to fight, you know, to protect their mainly economic interests. So I advise the heads of states of ECOWAS to emphasize dialogue and do away with any effort, any idea, any attempt to invade Niger, considering the most important fact that the people in Niger have not outrightly protested against the military intervention. So why would you be crying more than the bereaved? If the people in Niger seem to favor military intervention at this point, bad as it may seem, considering also the fact that you did not forcefully intervene in similar countries where there were military interventions, I'm mentioning Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea and what have you. What is so special about Niger? So I think that it's a very simple thing. Call off the operation, emphasize dialogue. In fact, if you want to increase the sanctions, you can do that, so that the junta will realize that they are isolated and therefore they cannot effectively function. If they can't effectively function, they will need to quit that position or leave office, as the case may be. But the moment you intervene, it's now out of your hands, because any interest group, any foreign power can decide to give help to the junta, and if they give help to them, then you are no longer fighting the Niger Republic. Of course, we are all aware of pronouncements by governments of Mali, Burkina Faso, I suspect Mauritania and Algeria and Guinea.
We learned that even Ghana right now is in opposition to the use of force.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Ghanaian politicians, yes, but not the government, because the last meeting of 2 days ago was held in Accra, the capital of Ghana. You know, where they are perfecting their strategies, you know, to invade. So I think that it should be called off so that there will be peace. We should negotiate it out.
Let's look at this plea. They are pleading with President Tinubu.
Who?
The group. The consigned group.
Yes.
They are pleading with President Tinubu to call off the military.
I am also appealing to the president.
Now, this plea to President Tinubu, is it because he's the ECOWAS chairperson, or is it because the picture being painted now is looking like Nigeria is at war with Niger? What exactly?
No, I have addressed this issue before. We are not at war with Niger, but we are the biggest players in West Africa. We are the leader, natural leader of West Africa. The resources will come from Nigeria largely if there is a war. So, and we also are opportune to have our own president as the chair now. So, I believe that if the president of Nigeria withdraws from that project, most of the West African countries will have no choice but to withdraw, because of the simple reason that they are also banking on the resources that will come from Nigeria. And we have that influence over them to tell them that, look, don't go to war. You know, most people, maybe because they have not traveled, they don't know that Nigeria is actually a very influential country. It is influential, particularly in West Africa. If you go through the belt of West Africa, let's say you go from Lagos going down to Dakar, what you will just see are Nigerian businesses, Nigerian influence, Nigerian economy in all these countries. E.g., in most of those countries, you will see so many of Nigerian banks, Nigerian businesses, that sometimes you are even confused. Are you still in Nigeria or you are in a foreign country? That's the amount of influence we have. So I think that when you have that sort of economic influence and you are number one in the whole Africa, you should make it count. And making it count should be that you should talk to if you like call it your younger ones, instead of lording it over them,
influencing the process.
Yes.
Itself. Okay, let me bring this next story here. Now we'll look at the economic impact of this to Nigeria, even at present. Troops of the Economic Community of West African States have said they are ready to participate in a standby force that could intervene in the Republic of Niger after the coupists seized power from President Mohamed Bazoum. ECOWAS issued a 7-day ultimatum to the military to restore the president or risk sanctions, including possible military action. At a meeting in Ghana's capital, Accra, on Thursday, the defense chief said they prepared to reinstate the democratic order in Niger. Let's talk about, before we talk about the military force now that are standby and ready to go at ECOWAS call.
Yes.
Let's look at the economic impact of this to Nigeria. Last week, we had traders whose goods are stuck at the border. Yes. This is running into billions. I said last week.
I agree.
Now, I talked about the economy, the welfare of the women, the vulnerable in the time of war crisis, and that's women and children. Those who can find their way through the access points into Nigeria are already doing that, and they are nothing but refugees. That's on one side. Remember, we have a lot of issue of IDP camp here in Nigeria at different points.
Yes.
We also have the issue of
we have the
flooding.
Cameroonian crisis on very close to
Good.
us.
We also
Yeah.
have the flood issue that is on the
That's
us
true.
right now. Then the ones caused by insecurity. Now, if you consider the fact that business people who also ply this route are struggling with it, even asking, please open this other side of the border so we can actually use it, and no call to that effect is been going on. When you cut off electricity, it's not just the junta that you're affecting, it's also the people, the generality of Nigerians that is being affected. What exactly is the essence of this war? We were told that Bazoum was corrupt and all of that. That was why they took over. Why is ECOWAS not talking about seeking the issue like that led to the military takeover, seeking how to deal with that? And then we're all hearing the use of force, considering even the impact of this to Nigerians itself.
Well, first and foremost, there is an aberration in modern governance.
Okay.
The aberration is military rule. So ECOWAS do not need to necessarily determine the legitimacy or illegitimacy of a military government. Meaning that, Vivian, that once a government is illegitimate or is perceived by the international community as not being freely chosen by the people or democratic, then it simply means that that government will not be welcomed into the international community, because once a new government comes in, it requires to be legitimized, to be welcomed. And the people in Nigeria are having legitimacy issues because the way of manner they came into office. Having said so, I also agree with you that you cannot cry more than the bereaved. I have not seen any indication so far that Nigerians are protesting seriously against the junta.
Yeah.
And if the people who are directly affected are comfortable with a military intervention in their country, I think that we should be talking about negotiation rather than the use of force. And let us not forget that any military intervention that is not well timed and properly done could risk the life of the former president of Niger and his entire family. In fact, there have been threats that they could be killed. So we need to also be careful about that, because in the event of him being killed, then there will surely be an escalation of the crisis. So these are the issues. So I think the ECOWAS should tread softly and ensure that they are not playing to the gallery, which is basically what it seems right now. As for the business people, this is the price of war. Why I say so is that we must always remember that war is serious business. And because it's serious business, you need to understand that you cannot be talking about war, as if it's a tea party. Once you hear the word war, it talks about deprivation of your rights. It talks about cessation of good life. It talks about elimination of freedom. It talks about insecurity. It talks about violence. It talks about famine. It talks about hunger. It talks about poor health. It talks about lack of facilities generally. It talks about zero internet. In fact, war will lead to zero internet eventually. It also talks about lack of availability of money, and it talks about debt. So war is not an option.
Now, knowing that war is not an option, and Nigeria, as it is, fronting this process.
Yes.
Let's look at this from the.
I don't know. I would not want to say Nigeria is fronting. Let's say ECOWAS being led by Nigeria is fronting it.
The Nigerians and several people don't seem to agree.
Well, they have to. When they say, even as we are talking, the junta has not withdrawn from being members of ECOWAS. They signed protocols that took away part of their rights and allowed foreign powers to invade their country. Now, what are they complaining about?
Let's look at it from this angle. Nigeria right now.
Yes.
Like you said, it's not like it's a Nigerian versus Niger thing, but
no,
we
are
the big brother, so we're going to take a larger share of this in terms of funding and what have you. So let's look at it from the angle that right now we have a lot to deal with. we're just talking about $5 billion, $5 billion naira, and 5 trucks of grain.
I agree with you.
While some states are complaining about it already, we have IDPs. We have not resolved these issues. We have the flood.
Let me tell you something.
People that in Bayelsa, some of the people who had issues in Delta and Bayelsa, they are yet to recover.
In fact, there are Bayelsa communities where people have totally fled because of an ongoing political crisis.
And okay,
which has led to killings.
Absolutely, which has also led to being displaced.
Yes.
Internally displaced person. So we have refugees coupling with that. Do we have the capacity to accommodate?
I want to answer that question. I wanted to even interject where you were still talking. Nigeria is a corporate IDP camp because all sectors, all regions of Nigeria have effective and very large IDP camps. And that is a problem.
Can you buttress on that?
What I mean is that there is no region in Nigeria that is not having serious festering crisis. Whether you go to the west, you go to the south, you go to the southeast, you go to the northwest, north central, or northeast. It's the same story. And there are so many people who are displaced. In fact, the most terrible aspect of this, if you like call it corporate IDP camps we are running in Nigeria as a country now, is the fact that a lot of the people who are in those camps are also foreigners. They are either from Cameroon, Chad, Niger, even before this crisis. And even from our own displaced ethnic groups, just mentioned by Esther, that is ongoing.
Yeah, there's also a major issue of erosion that seems to have cleared a certain community as well.
If it is erosion, we say that's a natural disaster. We are talking about people who are not safe. They are running away from attacks in Bayelsa, a state of just 8 local government. So we do not have that capacity. Government should concentrate on the, if you like call it, the if you like, the camping or the IDP camps, and the only way you can do it is by resolving the issues that led to those camps being formed. That is by restoring security and ensuring that these people need to integrate with the rest of society and not necessarily live in camps, because even when you keep people in camps, it is dangerous because they are left to their devices. They are not under the full scrutiny of the law enforcement agencies because the camps are not necessarily accessible to all and sundry. In fact, even the media watch on those camps are not effective enough because a camp is what it is, a camp with so many people within a short space of or a limited area. So government should be focused on that. We now have the if you like call it reforms being done by this present government, which has led to the removal of subsidy and the pains it's causing. And now you are dealing with palliatives. You now want to go and add war on top. Does Nigeria have such an inelastic resource to deal with crisis in perpetuity? No, we don't. Right, so no to war. I say no to war.
All right, so let's wrap up from this angle, Prof. Looking at the ego of ECOWAS being bruised because the junta seem not to be listening to anyone.
Yes.
Looking at their ego now and looking at the economic impact of this, that a lot of business people are shut out and they are crying out. Billions are being lost in the course of this. Looking at the refugee issue and the IDPs we have in Nigeria, and looking at the fact that President Tinubu has a lot to do with putting the country itself, Nigeria itself, together. Between all of this and then the impact of a war breaking out of this in Africa, help us dissect this and how much this is going to affect us as Africa, not just as ECOWAS right now.
Okay, but let me start by saying that I want to advise those who are advising the president.
Okay.
And I want them to please take what I'm saying to him. In the event of a war that leads to a complicated international conflict, certain Nigerian cities will be targeted. On that list, top of that list will be the city you and I are residing in, Port Harcourt, being the goose that lays the golden egg for the rest of Nigeria. It is the oil capital of not just Nigeria, not just West Africa, but the whole of Africa. Wow. It will be a prime target for foreign powers who want to attack this country or bomb it. Lagos will also be a prime target because it is the commercial headquarters. It will be number 2 on that list. Commercial headquarters of Nigeria. Most of the brands are there. Even though we know that most of the resources that keep Lagos running comes from Port Harcourt, but the brands are there.
Yeah.
So it will be a prime target because there is a huge economy going on in Lagos. Abuja, the seat of power, will also be targeted because if you weaken the seat of power, you weaken any resolve of any country to continue or keep fighting. So we should understand this. And then I don't need to mention that there are about 33 other states with cities, and they will also be targeted. But this will be the first 3 targets in order of priority.
All right,
now, my fear is that a crisis in a country that has 1/5 of the population of Africa will certainly affect the entire Africa.
Okay.
Because out of every 5 persons in Africa, 1 is in Nigeria. The present population of Africa is about 1 billion. We are over 200 million. So please, the federal government, all ECOWAS head of states should seize any idea of starting a conflict. We can't have it because Nigeria is too big. If that conflict now centers around Nigeria because we are perceived as the, if you like call it, progenitors, the promoters of this war, it will be too bloody for the rest of Africa. So it will affect every African one way or the other.
Quick one in about just a minute, Prof. With this in mind, and
yes,
consider the fact that Northerners on more than one occasion and still as we speak
yes,
are saying no to this because of its impact in the northern region.
Yes.
If you also consider the fact that the average Northerner in these countries scattered everywhere around Nigeria is most likely a Nigerian, does this government have the power or the power to capture this mess if it blows out in our face?
Well, I want to correct that last impression. Okay. We have, you see, before the colonial intervention, tribes cut across every territory in West Africa. So you have Hausas in Nigeria, you have Hausas in Niger, you have Hausas in Ghana, up to the end of the belt in Dakar, Senegal. The same with the Fulanis and many other tribes. So it will not be correct to think that just because you see Hausa people here, you are the only people who have Hausas. No.
Okay.
So those people
but they are here.
Yes, some are here. We are also there. Good. You need to go there and see our people there. Good. We are also there, so they are legitimately here because we have an ECOWAS community. So I wouldn't want us to differentiate them in that manner. Having said so, I want it to be clear that the call by the northern people is legitimate. They don't want to war. They have, if you like, call it family ties, tribal ties, and other federal or religious ties with the people in Niger. But I'm worried by the way and manner they are going about making those calls. You know why I'm worried, Vivian? Most of the crises that occurred in the 90s, 80s, and what have you, happened in the southern part of the country. We remember when we were at war with Cameroon. Why was this call not fervent from these northern states when Cameroon was at war with Nigeria, even if for a brief period, over the Bakassi Peninsula? So is it convenient for people in the south to die, and it's not convenient for people in the north to die?
All right.
I think it still brings us to what we said earlier. Nigeria should do away with tribalism when addressing public issues.
All right.
The issue is that if somebody dies in Katsina, it's a Nigerian.
Right,
if he dies in Port Harcourt, it's a Nigerian.
Thank you very much, Prof. That's been our show today. It's always an honor.
Thank you. My pleasure, always.
And that's been our show, everyone. And then we'll see you on the other side of 10 a.m. Stay with us. ATN Sports Talk comes up next.